We'll here too. Okay, everybody, it is 3:30, which means, of course, it is time for one of our 3:30 after-school STEM shows. For those of you out there seeing us for the first time, we do these shows every single day at 3:30. We do a live stream on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube concurrently. So for those of you in our live audience here, we do a little bit of a live audience here. You are on we are live streaming this as well, so anything you say, do on camera is going to be out there on the internet, so be mindful of that. And for our internet audience here, welcome back. And so today, what we have is actually some new critters that just arrived here at the Science Center this morning. And so these are critters that I personally have never really worked with before, and so I think what we're going to talk a little bit about is what the process here is about, is where do all the animals we get here at the Science Center come from? How do we get all these lizards and snakes and whatnot? Talk about these guys in particular, what type of critters they are, and then we'll probably, with our live audience here, actually do a little bit of petting with them. And so if you happen to come here and happen to be here at 3:30, we do these shows every day, and so depending on the show you come for, we might have some opportunities to do some volunteer interactions here and get a chance to participate a little bit like these guys are. And so they're going to be the first ones to ever, first guests at least, to ever interact with these animals. And so I think we'll show them here. And what we'll do is I'll just pick up this guy here. And what we have here is, of course, a guinea pig, a creature that I'm sure some of you have seen before, but kind of a unique little creature. This is Finley, right? Yep. Is the brown one? Yep. So the brown one's name is Finley. And let's talk a little bit about where these guys come from, how they ended up here. So these guys were actually pets before they were here. And every once in a great while, we will take a pet here at the Science Center. We try not to make a policy out of it because we don't want people coming in and just dumping any unwanted pets here. And so whenever we take an animal that was formerly a pet, we try and put a lot of restrictions on it. So it has to be an animal that we can actually use here in educational context. It has to be some sort of deficit for us as far as a topic that we want to talk about. And it has to be something that we can actually do stuff with. And so guinea pigs are a great fit for that, because for those of you who have visited the Science Center before, you might have noticed we have a lot of scaly, slimy stuff here, but not a whole lot of fuzzy things. And mammals are, of course, of particular interest to humans, because that's what we are. I mean, these guys are immediately become the closest living relatives to humans that we have here at the Science Center. And that's interesting in and of its own right, is that these guys are rodents, so they're a little bit more closely related to us than like the rabbit would be. And so, again, as far as like where we get our other critters, I guess some of them are pets. We have a couple of those. A lot of them come to us from breeders. So a lot of times when we'll identify a need and then we'll go out looking for a thing. So for example, a lot of the birds and lizards that we get, for example, we'll say, okay, we're looking for a new, well, here's a recent example, is we were looking for a new boa. We wanted a new big snake because ours was retired. He got old and now as a private owner in Park Rapids now. And so we decided, yeah, we've had a big snake here for years and years and years, and this one's moving out, and we want to keep that experience. So we've put out feelers looking for a new big snake, and we ended up with 2 new big snakes. And so that's kind of the standard. Every once in a while, there's some stuff that we'll collect by ourselves. So if you've visited like the toads or like the clawed frog or a lot of the fish that you see around the tanks here, stuff that we actually just catch ourselves from around here. We have a permit for that, and then we keep them. But I said every once in a while we'll get someone who will come to us with a pet that they potentially are looking to donate, and usually we say no. And so if you are someone who has a pet that they are looking to potentially donate to us, it's worth a call. Like, go ahead and give us a call, but I would say don't get your hopes up that we will actually donate to it. But I want to talk a little bit about guinea pigs, and we'll visit with our other one that we have here, because we do have 2 of them. And so guinea pigs are kind of cool. They are, like I said, a relatively popular pet as far as rodents go. And they are really unique in that they are a mountain-dwelling creature in the wild. They're native in South America exclusively, and they are really unique because they're really the only rodents I can think of that are really built for the cold weather. Because they live way high up in the mountains where it's very cold, and so they have a lot of body fat on them, and you'll feel that as you're holding them, is that they're kind of bulky and squishy and fatty on them. They also have a lot of fur because they got to retain all that heat in there. as a product of, being kind of built for the cold weather, they're also, as far as I can think of, the only rodents that people actually relatively commonly eat. There is a food market for these guys in certain parts of the world, and if you go to the right place, even in the States, you can get guinea pig. And there's a lot of history with that, and the peoples in the Andes Mountains, which is kind of cool. The other kind of interesting thing with them is the name. You ever think about the name guinea pig, why they're called guinea pigs when they are not pigs, and they are not from Guinea either? So the pig thing is apparently just a product of kind of their body shape. They have a weird big head relative to their body, which is similar to like what a pig has. They also make kind of a pig-like noise when they're making a noise. It's kind of similar to a pig kind of suian. But the guinea thing is really interesting because, like I said, these guys are native in South America exclusively. And Guinea is not in South America. Guinea is in Africa. And then New Guinea is down in the South Pacific. There's an island called New Guinea there. And so these guys, the Guinea name is something that is widely disputed as far as where it came from. There's a lot of kind of urban legends about it, I suppose, where supposedly back in the day you could buy them for a single guinea, which is a coin. There's some speculation that maybe when they were getting shipped to Europe, their frequent area where they would stop was in the country of Guinea, and so they would come to Europe via Guinea from South America, so they got called guinea pigs. There is a place in South America called French Guiana, and so there's some speculation that was like someone just like wrote the wrong country down because they didn't know what they were talking about, and so they're actually supposed to be Guyana pigs. So the debate rages on. Honestly, nobody really knows where they're from. But they also represent kind of an interesting thing in sort of our global history here, where we talk about when different groups of peoples encounter each other, and this happens a lot, of course, with colonialism. And this is kind of an interesting thing with South America in particular, is that guinea pigs aren't the only thing that people encountered or that Europeans encountered in the Americas when they came here for the first time. There's all sorts of things that we kind of think of as, maybe associate with certain kind of European things that, didn't exist in Europe before contact with the Americas, like potatoes are another like really obvious one that jumps out. And it's like, you think of like British Irish cuisine and like potatoes are one of the first things you think of, but they weren't there before the 1500s. There was no potatoes in Europe at all. So the cultural exchange that these guys represent, I think, is kind of interesting too. One other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is I mentioned that guinea pigs are the closest relatives that we have here at the Science Center to humans, and it's slightly closer related to us, what are you doing, bud, than the rabbit. Go under there. There you go. And a lot of people assume that rabbits are rodents. I know it's a thing I definitely assumed at one point. But one thing that's kind of cool is they're very closely related, but they're slightly different. So I actually have here a skull from a cottontail rabbit, like you would find just in your yard around here. And I also happen to have a skull from a guinea pig. And so you can see, for one, how small that guinea pig skull is relative to how big that guinea pig's head is. And you immediately start to understand how much fur and skin and fat is on that thing when you see how teeny tiny that skull is. And maybe once we come up and visit, we'll do a little bit closer comparison to get a little bit better idea. But guinea pigs are rodents, and rabbits are what we call lagomorphs, which are very closely related to rodents. And they do a lot of the same stuff. They both have those incisors that they have to be chewing all the time. That's kind of the signature thing of both of these, is their front teeth never stop growing, so they have to be constantly chewing on stuff. You can even see in their pen that they've got here, there's a little wooden set of blocks in the back here that's there for them to chew on and has been chewed on a bit. And they both have this, but really the main defining feature that separates rodents from lagomorphs is the number of those incisors they have. So rodents have 2 of them. So 2 right in the front, which the teeth are gone in here, so we just have the holes for them. But rabbits have 4. So they have the front 2, and then there's actually a second set of incisors like directly behind the front set. And that's the main reason main way you tell the difference between them. That's kind of the diagnostic thing between between rodent and lagomorph. Kind of an interesting little thing. Like I said, very closely related, but that one little thing, they're like, oh, nope, that makes it different. And as I said, in the grand scheme of things, rodents are very, very closely related to humans. That's probably a big part of the reason why so few rodents end up as food animals, is because basically the closer related 2 things are to one another, the more likely it is that like diseases are going to be able to pass through. So that's why we don't eat like monkey, is because monkeys are really closely related to humans, and you're going to catch something from it probably. It's why you don't eat other humans, is a big part of the reason why you don't do that. And that's a big reason why most animals won't eat their same species. Most animals don't cannibalize because the likelihood of passing disease from one thing to the next is really high, and that, like I said, holds true and becomes less true the further away you get. And so technically, if you really wanted to be technical about it, like the best things for us to eat would probably be things like, you know, insects and things like that, but we don't do that yet. We will soon though. So I think with no further ado, what we'll do is take these two guys out. I have a couple volunteers on the side here, Ellie and Tristan, who are going to be doing some holding with them. They're just going to keep them in their lap for now. We're not going to have guests holding them just yet. And while they're holding, I'll give our guests here in person a chance to pet. We'll bring the card over here and get a closer look at them. And we'll talk a little bit more while that holding is going on about kind of our practice when we do get a new critter. So, we wanted this one, right? So yeah, if you guys want to come by and give the pigs a pet, I would say go right ahead. And so, we're kind of limiting the amount of contacts. So yeah, if you guys want to come out and you can kind of loop around this way, or if you're a little camera shy, just don't need to. And so whenever we get new animals, we basically never just throw them right out on the exhibit floor and bring them out for handling with guests, because it's a lot to deal with. Like, it's a lot of attention, it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of motion that most of these critters are not used to dealing with. So anytime we get a new creature, generally the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take it, we're going to put it in its pen, and then we're going to put it behind the scenes someplace. And I said part of that is just getting them used to kind of the, even just like the day schedule, like when people are in the building, when lights are on, things like that. But part of it is also for quarantining purposes, kind of depending on the creature. So like we got, what did we have back? Oh, we had the clawed frog that was back there recently. We got the new clawed frog, and we had that one sitting behind the scenes for a couple weeks because we have another clawed frog, and we don't want to bring a new clawed frog in that's going to bring some sort of disease in with it that's going to get our other clawed frog sick. So we keep it behind the scenes for about 2 weeks before we release that one out onto the floor with our other one. And then once they are done with that process, usually generally we'll bring them out onto the floor on kind of a limited contact basis, so they're still getting exposed to the guests, there's still people around, there's still all the hustle and bustle, but they're not getting taken out and petted, and we'll do that for maybe a week or so. And then we'll transition into stuff like this, where we'll have a volunteer or a staff person will take them out and let the guests pet them or visit with them a little bit, but not hold them. And then eventually, if everything goes right, we get to a point where we'll say, yeah, guests, you can hold this thing, supervised by a staff or volunteer person, of course. And so anytime we get a new creature, you know, it's probably a month-plus long process before we get to a point where we're saying, yes, guest, you can hold this thing. And that's for the animal's safety, that's for guest safety, that's for basically everyone's well-being. Saves me headaches, saves me paperwork, because if somebody gets hurt, then I gotta fill out paperwork about it, which I don't want to do. But yeah, I think that's kind of a intro to guinea pigs, intro to what our kind of behind-the-scenes process here as far as bringing in new animals. Like I said, I think we'll let these guys hang out for a little while, so if any of you guys want to come and visit with them, not on camera, I would say you're welcome to do so. But for our internet audience here, one of the things that has happened recently is that we have recently sort of got a sponsor for these. And so we are being underwritten by the Beltrami Electric Co-op for all of these streams that we're doing, so shout outs to them. Also, if you do want to come and visit in person, we are now open Friday, Saturday, and Monday from 9:30 to 5, and then Sundays from 1 to 5. So you can come in and visit us in person then. If you are somebody who is representing a group, then we are also scheduling group visits right now. And so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are all days that we're scheduling group visits. Those dates are filling up fast though, so if you are interested in coming in, call early and get it scheduled. Otherwise, yeah, thank you all for watching. We will be live tomorrow. It's going to be Anne talking about some of how we name animals within the animal kingdom, which I think